In 2003, a gang of thieves stormed this vault, which contains the largest quantity of diamonds in the world. This vault is located in a small area in Belgium called the Diamond Capital. It is a small area, but 80% of the world's diamonds pass through it. This area has a special police force, which they call the Diamond Police. The vault that contains diamonds was considered one of the most complicated vaults in the world, with 10 layers of protection. But only one man decided to penetrate all of these layers and carry out a complex and insane robbery. He formed a gang of 5 people, each with a certain skill. After 2 years of planning and work, they carried out the operation and stole diamonds worth $100 million, which is considered the largest diamond theft in history. The largest diamond theft in history took place in a city called Antwerp, a city in Belgium that is known as the world's diamond capital, because in this city there is a very small area called the diamond area. Imagine that 80% of the world's diamonds pass through this small area with a value of 35 billion annually. This area was very secure. Imagine that special police were appointed by the Belgian government in this area, specifically called the Diamond Police. Inside this area, there is a large building that is the most important in the area among all the buildings, with only one street in the front, and some automatic barriers that prevent any car from entering. Do not be surprised if you see people walking on this street carrying suitcases tied to their hands with chains. No one could be in this area unless he is a diamond dealer or a big buyer. This main building is called Antwerp World Diamond Center, which is the largest building in the area inside which the largest diamond companies in the world are located. Each company has an office in this building. For any employee of these companies, in order to enter the building, an electronic card is required. After scanning the card, the computer records his name and the time of his entry, and the same process while he exits. The building from the outside is monitored by a large number of security cameras that cover every corner of the building. And of course, the same thing inside the building. These cameras are also monitored by the guards for hours. In the second underground floor, there is a vault. This vault is considered the largest vault that contains the biggest quantity of diamonds on Earth. Of course, the diamonds are not just thrown inside the vault, but they are placed in safe boxes that are owned by the merchants or the owners of the diamonds, and each box has its own key. The company or the merchant can store the diamonds he wants in the box, and be assured and sure that no one will come close to them, because this vault is supposed to be impenetrable. The vault is equipped with 10 layers of protection. It was an engineering masterpiece. The first layer of protection is the metal door, which weighs 3 tons and is 30 centimeters thick. The engineers estimated that if anyone wanted to break into the vault, he needed at least 12 hours of digging with a strong electric drill. In any case, there are vibration sensors under the door, and if there is any digging on the door, the alarm will be immediately turned on. Besides, there is a lock with a passcode, which consists of 4 numbers, and each number consists of 2 digits from 0 to 99, which means that whatever was done, statistically speaking, it was impossible to guess the code, and if the code wasn't entered correctly, the key wouldn't enter the lock hole. Yes, the vault has a long key, 30 centimeters long and as thick as the door. And no, we are not done here. The vault has more layers of protection. At the top of the door, on the corner, there is a magnetic sensor. If the door is opened and the 2 metal pieces are separated from each other, the alarm will be turned on. So even if you have the code and the key, as soon as the door is opened, the alarm will work automatically. Are we done here? No, we are not done yet. These are just the security layers on the outer door, but inside the vault, there are several sensors and detectors. A light sensor, a heat sensor, and a motion sensor. The light sensor is mounted on the ceiling, and the heat and motion sensors are together on a single device hanging on the wall. I mean, even if you open the door and the alarm doesn't work, you won't be able to do anything inside the vault, because you would be detected by these sensors immediately, in addition to the surveillance cameras inside the vault that are monitored by the guards. Let's suppose that you have surpassed all these protection layers. You still can't get the diamonds because they are placed in safe deposit boxes, and each box has a strong lock that will not be broken easily at all. So, who is this crazy man who would even consider trying to rob such an impregnable vault? This man is an Italian named Leonardo Notarbartolo. Leonardo's ability to dazzle is his most important quality. He is attractive in the same way that con artists are. He can captivate people with his charisma and genuineness, causing them to lose caution and unwind with him, and then surprise them with his hidden talents and wit. Imagine that he once said, "I was born to be a thief," and indeed, when he was 19 years old, he started stealing fancy sports cars. These were his beginnings. After a few years, he moved to stealing diamonds because he considered it a more profitable target. Diamonds are light, small, and easy to carry, and at the same time, they have a high value. Moreover, it is difficult to be tracked, unlike cars. Ever since his early days of diamond theft, Leonardo had a fascination with jewelry and realized he was talented in that area. He had the talent to create exquisite jewelry designs. He then decided to open some jewelry stores because he was really enjoying this field. After that, he would have a network of connections in both the legal and illegal domains, which would facilitate the sale of the stolen diamonds on the black market. However, once, one of Leonardo's stores was robbed. He suffered a significant loss as a result of the robbery. He was upset and wanted to find a way to make up for this loss. This is probably what inspired him to consider robbing the World Diamond Center in Belgium. And in fact, in addition to the wealth that could be gained by stealing the center, this would be like the legendary work that will immortalize his name as one of the greatest thieves. This thing gave him greater motivation and made him excited. Of course, he couldn't just go and try to penetrate the building and the vault without any prior knowledge of it. Firstly, he had to study, plan, and know everything before he started. Leonardo made a very bold move. He went to the Diamond Center and told them that he was a diamond dealer and wanted to rent an office in the building. And he was actually honest. He was a diamond merchant and had shops. The woman, who was the building manager, did not suspect him and simply rented an office for him. So Leonardo now had that electronic card that allowed him to enter and leave the building whenever he wanted, morning or night. Since you have a card, you can enter as you wish. This was in 2000, meaning it was 3 years before the operation was scheduled. Imagine that Leonardo had been planning and preparing for this operation for 3 years. And since he became an official tenant in the building, he had the right to rent a safe deposit box in the vault. After Leonardo had rented a safe deposit box, he had the right to enter the vault. Anyone who had a safe in the vault could go down to the underground floor and show his electronic card to the guard watching the security cameras, and the guard would let him in. The big vault door is kept open during official working hours, and there is a small second door called the day door. This is the door that is closed and opened when the tenants enter and leave the vault, so that they don't open and close the big vault door every time a tenant comes in or leaves the vault. This big door remains open all day long. The safe deposit box owner can enter the vault normally, open his box with his own key, and do whatever he wants while the guard, of course, is watching him through the surveillance camera inside the vault, in addition to another armed guard standing outside the vault door, but no one enters with him to give him some privacy. Every time Leonardo entered the vault, he kept checking on the security equipment inside, using a bag inside which he placed a small camera and made it come out of the bag zipper in a hidden way. This camera kept filming every corner of the safe. It filmed the sensors, the security cameras, and all other security devices. Leonardo kept repeating these visits to the vault, and on each visit, he collected more information. Leonardo did not begin implementing his plan until he collected all the information he needed, and he did not start forming a team until the summer of 2002, about 8 months before the operation. To form a team, Leonardo returned to his original city, a city called Turin in Italy. This city was called the City of Thieves, because it was the birthplace of many thieves and members of criminal gangs, and there was a connection between these thieves. They did not work together as one entity, but they always cooperated when there was an operation that required different skills. Because each of them had certain skills, they used each other's experience. The first person Leonardo contacted was Fernando Finito, who is dubbed the Monster. And by the way, each of them has a special nickname, a nickname that is related to his skill. From his nickname, we can tell that the Monster is a strong person, so his mission is to take charge of the work that needs muscles or power. Leonardo didn't make much effort to convince the Monster to join him, but as soon as he told him about the quantity of diamonds in the vault, the Monster agreed. Of course, the penetration of this complex vault needs more than just muscles. It needs a brain and a meticulous plan. Here comes the role of the second person who joined Leonardo's team, Elio Tenorio, who is dubbed the Genius. The Genius's task was the hack of the electronic systems. He acquired this skill from his work. He has a business specializing in the supply of equipment and security and surveillance devices, so he was good at electronics, so he was the perfect person for this mission. Even after Leonardo had recruited these people, there were still things that he did not find a solution to, and there were still protection layers that he was thinking about how to penetrate. For this reason, he used to travel at least once a month to the diamond capital. The vault opened at 7 in the morning. And of course, Leonardo could enter the building at any time he wanted as an office tenant, and sometimes he used to go to the vault before 7 o'clock, before it opened, waiting for the guards to open it. And he used to pretend that he had something urgent, and he needed to open his box. That's why he came early. This had allowed him to see the process of opening the vault. Of course, the guards would not let him see the code, but at least he managed to see the 30 centimeters long key. Of course, Leonardo had to find a way to make a copy of that key, and this was one of the most difficult challenges in the whole process. Here comes the role of the fourth member of the gang, the man who is dubbed the King of the Keys. This is all we know about him. We do not know his name or his real appearance. All we know about him is that he is a person who is specialized in keys. In this stage of the plan, they needed the building blueprints because it would greatly help them understand the building layout and determine the best way to reach the vault. Leonardo went to the building manager and expressed his desire to expand as he was currently leasing one office. His company was growing, and he was considering taking more offices. He asked if she could provide him with the building blueprints so he could plan the office expansion effectively. Surprisingly, the manager not only agreed to provide floor plans, but also handed over the entire building's blueprints, including those of the vault. These blueprints did not reveal any security systems, but disclosing the spaces, routes, and passages proved to be immensely helpful. It was a human security error on the part of the manager, and Leonardo's skill and charisma played a role in obtaining the detailed blueprints. With this information, they discovered the optimal route to enter the building. They found a way to access the building through the garage without passing through a security checkpoint. There was a dedicated car garage entrance on the side street, allowing them to avoid the main street with automatic barriers. However, the garage doors were equipped with security systems, which will be discussed later. In this stage of the plan, Leonardo realized that they needed a fifth member who would serve as their driver. The choice fell on a person whom Leonardo trusted greatly, as they had previously worked together, a man named Pietro Tefano, nicknamed the Fast One. With this addition, the gang now comprised 5 members. Each member was assigned a specific task. Throughout this period, Leonardo regularly visited the building, attempting to gain access to more secure areas that he wasn't supposed to enter due to security measures, such as the guard's room. However, using his charming personality and unique approach, he managed to establish relationships with the guards, making them believe he was their friend. Sometimes, he even entered the surveillance room, a place he was not supposed to enter. He started to understand the guard system, their routines, and how they monitored the cameras. A significant discovery was that they only monitored during working hours when the vault was open. After closing time, No one monitored the cameras because they were confident in the security systems protecting the vault. They believed no one could bypass these systems without triggering the alarm. After the gang members consulted with each other, they knew that this operation had to be carried out entirely in one night. The time frame they had was limited to about 5 hours. If they took more time, they would expose themselves to the risk of being discovered. How would they be able to bypass all these security systems quickly without wasting their precious time? Here came the decision that the genius would attempt to infiltrate the vault on his own. He planned to disable some of the security systems 5 days before the night of the heist. Imagine that the genius simply used Leonardo's card to enter the building, disguised as a worker. When he reached the building, he told them that he had a job in Leonardo's office and that he had been hired for a task. He showed them the card he had with him, along with a fake work order. Of course, he entered at night, and as we mentioned, anyone with a card and a rented office could enter and leave the building at any time. So, the evening shift guards didn't suspect the genius and let him enter without any issues since he had a valid card. They assumed that he would go to the office to do his job and leave normally. Actually, the genius was not heading to the office. The genius's target was the vault. Nothing prevented him from going down to the lower floor where the vault was located. He entered the vault room smoothly, and since the guards were not monitoring the surveillance cameras due to the late hour, the genius took his time. Above all, he covered the surveillance cameras to avoid being detected or recorded while doing his job. Afterward, he installed a small camera he had brought with him above the vault. He had personally crafted this camera for the specific purpose of discovering the code used by the guards to open the vault. The camera would record the guard the next morning as he came in, opened the vault, and entered the code. The king of the keys believed he could duplicate the key from the captured footage, since the guard would bring the key and insert it into the safe. The camera would capture the key, and the king of the keys planned to duplicate it from these shots. This, in itself, is quite insane. The next step was to disable the sensor or magnetic sensor we mentioned earlier. As we previously explained, the magnetic sensor consists of 2 metal pieces located on top of the safe in the corner. If the safe door is opened and these pieces are separated, the alarm will automatically activate. The ingenious method by which the genius disabled this magnetic sensor demonstrated why he deserved his title. What he did was create an aluminum plate and attach it to the 2 pieces. This securely fixed the 2 pieces together with the plate. Subsequently, he could simply loosen the screws of the magnetic pieces without them separating from each other. This way, the magnetic field between them remained uninterrupted, preventing the alarm from triggering. In other words, if the pieces were removed together without separating, the alarm wouldn't go off. Once the genius ensured this, he returned the pieces to their original position, securing them once again. Now he knew that on the night of the theft, he could easily detach the pieces without triggering the alarm. The next task was to identify the frequency that opening the garage door. As previously mentioned, through the blueprints of the building, they discovered that there was a garage door leading into the building from a side street. This particular door opens with a specific frequency, which is difficult to ascertain. However, the genius managed to reach the device controlling the door. He successfully determined the frequency leveraging his expertise in electronics and security devices. With this accomplished, the genius's task concluded. He installed a small camera to identify the safe code and the appearance of the key. He also understood how to disable the 2 magnetic pieces of the vault and identified the specific frequency for the garage door. In doing so, he fulfilled all that was required of him. The next task was to disable the sensors inside the safe. As we mentioned earlier, there is a light sensor hanging on the ceiling and a motion and heat sensor attached to the back wall inside the safe. So, the gang got a sensor device similar to the one in the safe and began conducting their experiments on it. They found out that if they covered the device with a cardboard box, it would block the sensor waves, rendering the device as if it were not there, causing it to malfunction. However, the problem was that if they entered the safe before being able to disable the device with the cardboard box, the device would detect them, and the alarm would be triggered. They needed a method to disable the device before entering the safe, or at least temporarily reduce its effectiveness to avoid detection as soon as they entered. This task fell on Leonardo, the mastermind, as he was the only one who could officially enter the safe. Therefore, this operation had to be carried out when the safe was open, meaning during working hours. This was the only solution. The problem is that during working hours, the security guards are monitoring the safe through cameras. What happened is that on the morning before the operation, on February 14, 2003, Leonardo went to the building as usual, entered using his card, and then went to the safe. He showed his card to the guards and entered as usual, but this time he had hidden a spray fixative for hair under the sleeve of his suit. After entering the safe and going to his box, the sensor device was next to him. He pretended to stretch himself and started spraying the sensor with the fixative spray. Of course, he tried to make the movement appear natural, but the guard who was monitoring felt that something was wrong and went out of the control room to check what this person was doing. When he reached the safe, Leonardo pretended as if he was just fixing his hair in a way that convinced the guard that everything was fine. He managed to get himself out of the situation, and the guard let him go without further questioning. Now, after Leonardo sprayed the fixative on the sensor device, its efficiency became very weak. It didn't completely disable the device, but it wouldn't function as required. This gave them the opportunity they needed to cover the sensor with a cardboard box before being exposed. This way, all the preparations for the operation were completed. On that night, which was the night preceding the heist's night, the whole gang gathered together in Leonardo's apartment, located in the city of Antwerp, the capital of diamonds. They sat together, eating Italian food, and subsequently made sure of their preparations and tools, their excitement reaching its peak. The eagerly anticipated day was the following day, Saturday, February 15, 2003. On that night, Pietro, the fast one whose task was driving, took them by car to the Diamonds building. They proceeded along the side road that would lead them to the garage door. Through the frequency discovered by the genius, they managed to easily open the door. They entered the building with their car through the garage. Now they faced several doors that they had to pass through to reach the vault. These doors were, of course, closed, but one of the things the gang had done was purchase locks similar to those used on most of the building's doors. The king of the keys had created a master key that opened most of the doors effortlessly. They continued to open the doors in front of them, passing through them one after the other. They navigated their way through the corridors and up the stairs until they reached the vault room. Now, the real work is about to begin. First, they covered the surveillance camera in the vault room. They didn't want the cameras to record what they were doing. The next step involved getting rid of the magnetic pieces that would trigger the alarms if separated. As previously mentioned, the genius managed to create an aluminum plate to connect the two pieces without detaching them. Unscrewing the bolts, they successfully removed the pieces without triggering any alarms, just like he did on the night of his infiltration. Now, the first layer of protection had crumbled. The second step was to input the code, a task assigned to the monster. They got the code from the camera installed by the genius on the night of the infiltration. They managed to record the guards entering the code. The monster entered a 4-number code, each number consisting of 2 digits. If the correct code was entered, the opening through which the key would be inserted would unlock. Once the correct code was entered, they proceeded to try the key crafted by the King of Keys. As mentioned earlier, the King of Keys attempted to duplicate this key from the footage captured by the camera installed by the genius. This was seemingly impossible, or at least extremely challenging, but the King of Keys was confident. They inserted the key into the opening, but it didn't work. The key copy didn't match the original. Imagine that after all these efforts, the key didn't work. So, what is the solution? Leonardo was not the mastermind by chance. Fortunately, He used to pay attention to all the details. As I told you before, he tried to get close to the guards and tried to be present during the opening and closing of the safe to see their routine. What he had noticed was that the guards don't keep the key in a safe place, but they keep it in a normal safe in a nearby room. Consequently, they simply went and broke this safe, retrieving the original key from it. This was one of the heinous security faults that Leonardo was able to exploit, and of course, he wouldn't have discovered it if he hadn't remained there for such a long time, carefully examining and exploring the location. Now they can open the safe, but before doing so, they needed to turn off the lights in the vault so that the light sensor inside the safe wouldn't trigger the alarm. It is possible that they used night vision goggles or something similar, meaning they could see without light. So they opened the safe door, followed by the interior door, or the day door. The first person to enter was the monster, who was the tallest among them. Moving slowly and quietly, he brought a tape with him to cover the light sensor on the ceiling. The next step was disabling the motion and heat sensors mounted on the wall. Leonardo had sprayed hairspray on it, supposedly impairing the device's efficiency and slowing its response to heat. However, with their movements in the safe and the increased temperature in the room, they could be detected at any moment, triggering the alarm. Now, they had to disable the device using the cardboard box they had brought with them. Slowly and quietly using an extendable stick, like a selfie stick, with the cardboard box attached to its end. Slowly and carefully, they'd brought it close to the sensor until it was covered. Then one of them advanced and affixed it with his hand entirely to the wall. They were now sure that they had covered it from all sides. Afterward, they affixed the cardboard with tape to the wall. This way, they completely disabled the vault's protection. The final step to reach the loot was breaking the locks of the safe deposit boxes, of which there were 190. Naturally, Leonardo was an expert in these boxes. Every time he came to the safe, he opened his box and looked at it, which allowed him to identify all its weaknesses. Despite the strong locks on the boxes, they were supported by a small plastic piece, which was a weakness the gang exploited. They designed a device to be directly attached to the box's lock. The dimensions were precisely calculated, as Leonardo meticulously assessed every detail. They put the tool on the lock, and with pliers gripping the lock, they turned the screw until the tensile strength broke the lock. In this manner, they broke into the safety deposit boxes one after another. Inside, they discovered various valuable treasures, including cash, coins, and most significantly, diamonds, the ultimate prize. They seized everything they could, filling their bags. The good part for them was that a handful of diamonds in their hands equaled millions. They packed all their bags with these diamonds, claiming their loot to be valued at $100 million. This marked the largest heist in the history of vault burglaries, occurring in 2003, and considering the inflation, the amount would be even greater today. They continued collecting diamonds, gold, and jewelry until their bags were full, leaving behind a considerable number of unopened boxes. They opened roughly 100 boxes out of 190. They took a substantial amount but avoided excessive greed that could potentially hinder them due to the added weight. Now it's time to leave, but before they go out, they need to get rid of any evidence behind them. So they went to the surveillance room, where the guards kept tapes of surveillance camera recordings. They took all the tapes recorded during the past week, including tapes from all the cameras in the entire building. For example, even on the night when the genius came by himself to disable the security systems, they took its recordings so that the police wouldn't come back, review these recordings, and identify him, connecting him to the operation. It was a clever move on their part. Afterward, they made their way back to the garage, where the fast one with his car was waiting for them. They put all their belongings and all their loot in the trunk, then got into the car and drove away from the building immediately. Up until this moment, the operation had taken approximately 5.5 hours, and by 6 a.m, they arrived at Leonardo's apartment, the one he had in Antwerp. Upon their arrival and seeing the loot in front of them, their emotions were a mix of excitement and joy, but at the same time, there was fear and anticipation. They knew they had carried out the biggest robbery in history, an operation that people would talk about for years ahead. Gold, diamonds, jewelry, and money. At that time, they started counting the loot and dividing it, and everyone took his share. The next step was to clean the apartment and get rid of anything that could lead the police to them. They were aware that the authorities might search the apartment one day, so it was crucial to leave no evidence behind. One of the things they took great care of was their garbage, ensuring they took every trace with them, as their fingerprints and DNA could potentially lead to them sooner or later. They meticulously combed through every corner of the apartment, wanting to leave no trace behind. The subsequent step was to leave Belgium, because, undoubtedly, the police would launch a massive manhunt to apprehend them. Fortunately for them, there was no extradition treaty between their home country, Italy, and Belgium. Even if Belgian authorities solved the case and identified them, Italy would not hand over its citizens to be tried in Belgium, or at least this is what they expected. On that night, which was a Sunday, February 16, 2003, the day after the operation, the gang decided to part ways individually to return to Italy separately so as not to arouse suspicion. However, two individuals stayed together: Leonardo, the leader, and Pietro, the fast one, who was the one driving the car. These two took their shares of the loot, placing it in the car. They also took the trash they had collected from the apartment, with the task of disposing of it. During that night, as they were driving, Pietro, the fast driver, began to show signs of tension. He constantly checked the car mirrors and felt as if someone was following them. He started arguing with Leonardo, telling him they had to get rid of the trash right now. Leonardo urged him to calm down and insisted they dispose of the trash in a suitable place. Leonardo tried to reassure Pietro, telling him they needed to ensure they found a suitable location before getting rid of the trash. However, Pietro remained anxious and insisted on quickly disposing of the trash. Leonardo realized that this tension could lead them into trouble, so they continued driving on a relatively isolated road until they reached a forest. Leonardo decided to stop there and get rid of the trash in the forest. They pulled over, and Leonardo instructed Pietro to wait in the car while he looked for a suitable spot to dispose of the trash. Leonardo found an ideal spot, a secluded area deep within the forest. However, Pietro, still sitting in the car and increasingly tense, couldn't wait any longer. He got out of the car, took the trash, and began throwing it from the bridge they were parked nearby. The bridge was next to the road, not in an isolated area. When Leonardo returned and saw Pietro throwing the trash, he realized the severity of the situation. Surveillance camera tapes were hanging on the trees, and documents were scattered on the ground. Leonardo understood that they could not collect their belongings again, and all he could do was help throw away the trash and distribute it more. He convinced himself that most likely no one would discover them in any case, and if someone did, it would be after a long time when everything had deteriorated and dispersed. Then, they threw everything in that spot, and then continued their trip to Italy with their loot. On the next day, which was Monday, February 17, 2003, employees returned to work at the Diamond Building after the weekend break. When the security guard responsible for opening the safe arrived and unlocked it, he was surprised to find the safe overturned, with its contents scattered inside. The boxes were. The floor was filled with items and remnants of documents, and many pieces of jewelry were left behind by the thieves who were unable to take them. Immediately, they contacted the Diamond Police. The Diamond Police swiftly initiated their investigation. Upon inspecting the safe, they were convinced that it was an inside job, as the perpetrator had entered the safe before and was familiar with the building and all its security arrangements because all the security layers had been breached. As they searched for surveillance camera footage, they found nothing. They realized they were dealing with cautious criminals who had erased any traces. Concurrently, as the investigations were ongoing, an elderly retired man was walking in the forest, the same forest where Leonardo and Piero had discarded their trash. This man enjoyed strolling amidst the trees and had a particular fondness for this area. Irritated by the sight of a pile of trash, he wondered why people were disrespecting nature by dumping their waste there. While looking at the trash, he noticed some papers with the name Antwerp World Diamond Center. Surprised, he recalled that his wife had informed him earlier that morning about a major diamond theft that occurred in this building. Intrigued, he sifted through the rubbish, sensing that there might be something significant amidst the waste. Feeling the importance of these items, especially on this particular day, he promptly contacted the police and reported the discovery. The investigators arrived at the scene and began to examine the garbage and sort its contents. They were astonished by the things they found. Immediately, they realized that this trash was linked to thieves because they found CCTV footage. Unfortunately, the tapes were malfunctioning, rendering them unusable. The second discovery was small stones, which are found in jewelry around larger gemstones. The third item they found was a business card with the name and contact details of the genius. This card contained everything they needed to locate him. Furthermore, they found the fake work permit used by the genius to enter the building before the robbery, claiming that he worked in Leonardo's office. Through this document, they were able to link the theft to Leonardo, who had rented an office in the building, and they knew his identity. The investigators dove deeper into their search, opening their records and scrutinizing them. During their investigation, they uncovered that over the past 3 years, while leasing an office in the building, Leonardo had not engaged in any business transactions and didn't make any business deals. Among all the broken safety deposit boxes in the vault, Leonardo's box stood intact at the center, as the thieves knew it held nothing valuable. Despite being cautious, this was a witless move. The police became convinced that Leonardo was connected to the theft. However, the problem was that all they had was circumstantial evidence. As we mentioned earlier, he is currently in his hometown, Turin, Italy. Italy does not have an extradition treaty with Belgium, leaving the investigators feeling like they have reached a dead end. However, after a week, something unexpected happened. Leonardo began to feel invincible, and this feeling transformed into excessive self-confidence. We can even say that he reached the point of arrogance. Imagine that he was confident that they left no trace behind, to the extent that he returned to the city of Antwerp. He returned a second time, convinced that the situation was safe and normal, and no one suspected him. The purpose of this visit was to eliminate any potential evidence he might have left behind, especially any items in the apartment or office he had rented. This time, he brought his family with him, his wife and son. He placed his wife and son in the apartment and asked them to get rid of everything in it, anything they could throw away in the trash. Meanwhile, he went to the diamond building and entered with his card, as if nothing had happened. The guard was staring at him, disbelieving what he was seeing. However, it did not take long for the building management to call the police. By the time the building manager arrived, Leonardo was standing there, and she tried to engage him in conversation to distract him until the police arrived. This was the same manager he had manipulated before, but now the tables had turned, and she was the one playing him. Suddenly, detectives from the Diamond Police arrived, and when Leonardo saw them, he was shocked. He realized that this time, he was the one being played. Even though he knew he had been exposed, he still tried to play his role, acting innocent. The investigators began questioning him about the location of his apartment, and Leonardo attempted to stall them because his wife and son were still inside, cleaning the apartment and disposing of any evidence that could be used against him. After a period of conversation and pressure, he was forced to reveal the address. As they pressured him, they informed another police team to proceed directly to the apartment and raid it. Upon the police team's arrival at the apartment, they found his wife and son dragging a mattress down the stairs, intending to discard it outside the apartment. The police intervened in the middle of the process. After searching the apartment, they discovered several crucial pieces of evidence, including unmarked SIM cards. Although these cards had no names associated with them, their numbers were identifiable, allowing for tracking and tracing the locations from which calls were made during the robbery. Through the telecommunications company, they confirmed that one of the SIM cards had been present in the Diamond building during the time of the crime. Another significant find was small gemstones commonly used in jewelry, similar to those found in the area where the trash was dumped. The police were able to match them, providing strong evidence. After collecting this clear and compelling evidence, and Leonardo was in the police's custody, the Belgian authorities reached out to the Italian authorities, requesting cooperation. The Italian authorities agreed, and the Italian police raided Leonardo's house in the city of Turin, Italy. During the search, they discovered a small safe containing a collection of diamonds, 17 in total. Among these diamonds, they found one with a serial number. Later verification confirmed that it had been stored in the diamond building safe, indicating it was a stolen diamond. This became conclusive proof of Leonardo's involvement in the robbery. Leonardo was arrested in Belgium, and a very strong case was built against him. However, he refused to implicate his associates. In any case, the police had abundant evidence. All the members of the gang left behind DNA traces and documents that revealed their identities. Although there was no extradition treaty between Italy and Belgium, the Italian authorities were very cooperative. They apprehended them and chose to extradite them to Belgium. In any case, they captured the genius Elio, the monster Fernando, and Pietro, the fast one. The only one who has not been apprehended, and whose name and identity remain unknown to this day, is the King of Keys. His personality remained mysterious, but DNA evidence confirmed his presence in the vault. Now let's know their verdicts. This is the amusing part. The penalties for theft crimes in Belgian law are lenient, regardless of the stolen item, whether it be an apple or $1 billion. If the theft occurs without violence, the maximum punishment one can receive is only 5 years. This is the law they have. Imagine that Leonardo, the mastermind, only received 5 years, the maximum duration. As for the other 3, each received only 6 months. All of this happened without them returning anything they stole. The loot, estimated at $100 million, remained with them. They served their sentences. By 2008 and 2009, all of them were out of prison, living comfortable lives with the wealth they acquired. This is a picture of Leonardo, I believe, in 2017. In general, it seems that they used their wealth to live a life far away from the sites, because there is no information or pictures about them or where they are now. We have reached the end of our story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.